Hi, guys. Sifu Mark here, and I want to ask you to please press that like button and press that subscribe button before we get into our stuff. Today, we chat with a student and teacher of the Wudang arts. He's a student of Master Zhao Xuan Yun of Wudang Mountain, and he spreads these arts to enrich the lives of his students through Taoist culture and martial arts. Specializing in the straight sword, he's very well known on social media and online, period, by Swordsman Xia. He travels throughout the US, sharing the skills that he has attained through years of dedicated practice. Please welcome today, Swordsman Xia Michael Chong Yi. How are you doing today, sir?
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor.
Thank you very much for agreeing to come on to the podcast, sir. I have been watching your Instagram feed for a very long time now, and I've always been saying to myself, "Hey, this guy is such a really good swordsman. I'd have to get him onto the podcast." So, thank you for coming on.
Thank you. And a lot of my friends have been on your show, and it's always great. And so I've seen a bunch of the episodes, and I really, I was honored when you messaged me to come on. So thank you for putting me on the list of all these honorable guests you've had.
Hey man, you're right up there with them. Trust me, you really are. The way how I see you move with the sword, I just have to get into your mind, see what you're all about, you know. So if you don't mind, let's go ahead and get into the martial, and get into the podcast. There you go. All right, so let's go with the first question, sir. How do you start the martial arts?
Like a lot of the other people you've had on your show, a lot of it comes from the old kung fu movies and the old Saturday morning cinema and the martial art growing up, martial art culture of the 80s and things like that. So I started with around when I was a young kid at Taekwondo, and my dad had showed me some stuff and decided to enroll me. And I did that up through second dan until I met a kung fu teacher, and then I started doing kung fu and got exposed to Tai Chi and then ninjutsu and a few things. But I think my real story begins in 2008 whenever my master, Zhao Xuan Yun, came to the United States for his first workshop. And I remember I had just moved back to Pennsylvania from California, and I was doing stunt work and martial arts for small C-level films and stuff like that, trying to make a name. But I ended up moving back to Pennsylvania during the writer's strike, and it happened to be about the same time as my soon-to-be master's first time visiting and teaching in America. And I saw it online on the forums that there was this Wudang master in Connecticut coming for a workshop. So I was like, this weekend, and I hopped on my motorcycle and drove to Connecticut and just went to that workshop just blindly. And I fell in love with the whole style and the whole art and his whole energy. When he entered the room, you could just see his presence. I'm sure you've seen it in the videos. And ever since then, I've dedicated my life to these arts. So it's been a real journey through the Wudang gate, I guess.
Oh, okay. So you had said you had done Chinese martial arts before your introduction into Wudang arts, right?
Right.
What style was that? What was that? Right?
So that's one of those offshoot Shaolin brands that was going around. The teachers were from Syracuse and had came to my area in Pennsylvania with his family, and so I actually got exposed to these various of like mixed forms from different styles of Shaolin offshoot kung fu's. Like you had some Hung Gar form, and you had some long fist form, and you had a Tai Chi form that was Yang style, but it was taught as kung fu, not as Tai Chi. So there was a lot of these like in between styles, and it was all the hard training stuff, and that was really what I got out of that was the training side of it, not just the body mechanics, but all the exercise you see in the movies, because they pulled a lot, I think, from those kung fu films and stuff themselves as teachers in that era. And so that was a big root for me to build off of. And then because I'm by the Penn State University, there was exposure to a lot of martial arts. And I met a Bagua guy who was doing ninjutsu with us, and I just fell in love with the Bagua. And he practiced Yin style, so they had a lot of stuff online. And I ended up doing a lot of Yin style Bagua via online groups and things like that. And then whenever I met my teacher, I remember we did a workshop together, and I was like, oh, how'd I do, kind of, to his wife. And he said something in Chinese to her. It's like because I did such a bad job, it felt like at the Wudong stuff. He's like, oh, your Bagua's okay, like the dodge of the question. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll keep training, I'll keep going. I was really moved by the whole experience. And yeah, so that's like how I ended up at Wudong with a little bit of Tai Chi. And then actually, I had a car accident at one point where I was done training for a few months because I couldn't walk very well. And that's when I got exposed to Tai Chi in my 20s. And so, like, besides just the Tai Chi form out of context. And so that actually built in my ability to see my teacher's movements. So even though I didn't speak enough Chinese and he spoke no English at the time, I could see how he shifted or stepped so I could learn the lesson visually at least. And I think that gave me a bit of an edge to really dive into his workshops and events and classes. But
Awesome. So I have an off the cuff question for you there, Xia. So you really do have experience in both Shaolin and Wudang.
I wouldn't call it real Shaolin though, so I don't want to claim any like, you know what I mean. It was very Americanized, and it wasn't as. But yeah, I mean, I was exposed to the Shaolin and the Buddhist side. So when I was in high school and stuff, I was wearing mala beads and studying Buddhism and all the things tied to Shaolin Kung Fu. But then in the college era and later on was when I fell into Taoism. So
okay.
Yeah.
So what is there much difference between the Shaolin arts and say the Wudang arts? Like, is there much?
So the way it's taught, I think, is a big difference. Whereas whenever I went to Wudong, a lot of the experience is line drills and kicks and forms and rolls and like just keep drilling and drilling and drilling. Whereas whenever we did a lot of the Shaolin training, where they wore the robes and they dressed in the Shaolin clothing, and I'm not sure of the legitimacy, but a lot of the training was spent in strengthening the body. Like half a class or 2/3 of the class was physical exercise and rolling weights with your wrists to develop strong grips and picking up pennies off the ground with your knuckles for eagle claw and all these like really, let's say left field type approaches to fitness. And when I got to Wudong, it's just Zhenjuang, just Zhenjuang, lots of Zhenjuang, and then Qigong and things like this. And so the way it's taught, I think, or the way I was exposed to the teachings were polar opposites. I know your other teachers have talked about coming from schools that are like more Cobra Kai energy versus like love and relationships and stuff like that, and building a community. And I would say this is kind of that story also. I came from maybe a ragtag offshoot of Shaolin, but then I met a teacher that grew up in the Wudong Mountains. And he was one of those masters that immigrated from the mountain itself. And so you can kind of see how the culture affected both arts, I think. I don't want to say anything negative about any Shaolin Kung Fu because I respect them all. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So you, sir, are in a prime position for me to ask this question.
I love
being a disciple of a true master from Wudang Mountain, right? I think I can ask you this, and I think I could get a very good answer from you. What is Wudang Kung Fu?
Oh, okay. So when I hear the term Wudong, it can mean a lot of different things, just like Shaolin can sometimes mean different things. Some people say they do Shaolin Kung Fu, but it's an offshoot that moved to southern China and then was in a city for generations. Is it still Shaolin? The roots are, but it's not from the temple directly with all the changes and modifications for better or worse. And I think the same can be true when you use the term Wudong. So because Wudong worships Zhen Wu, and Zhen Wu is the martial god, the defending god that exorcises demons and carries the 7-star sword, because you worship him at Wudong as the place where he transcended his mortality, you see this, how do I put this? You can see the Wudong term being applied anytime Taoists are practicing martial arts, because they're giving homage to Wudong, or the master at Wudong, or the god of Wudong, Zhen Wu. So you can see how the term Wudong can be any Taoist martial art because they attribute it to Zhen Wu. But you also have Wudong proper, which can be anything from that region outside of Wuhan, where you can, there's a mountain range of all different styles of Wudong. So every mountain has multiple temples. And so now you have hundreds of schools claiming to be Wudong because they're from a region or a mountain range, not from a single temple. And I think that's where Wudong could be a little misconstrued. You have a lot of grandmasters of Wudong because you have a lot of different temples or variations of Taoism being practiced at Wudong. Does that help?
All right.
Build on this if there's more.
That is a perfect answer.
Great. Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to help. I went to Penn State for Chinese history and culture and religion. And so I kind of look at all these arts from the point of view of my teacher's lessons and seeing it myself, and also the texts and all the things written about Taoism. Even though it was called Chinese popular religion in a lot of older texts, they would separate the philosophy of Taoism from the popular religion and teach them separately so that it didn't hurt their own religious acceptance of these texts. It's hard as a Christian to take the philosophies of Taoism if it comes with gods and pseudo-magical practices. But if you can separate the popular religion from the Taoism philosophy, now the Tao Te Ching is westernized, or westernizable, I should say, in a healthy way. And I'm not saying it's bad, it's just the way that the text can be presented to a different view of how reality works. And so, sorry, not the tangent, but I just wanted to include that. Yeah.
No, man, that's absolutely no tangent, and please don't apologize about that at all, right? But I will ask this. Like Shaolin, a lot of people say that there's so many styles that come from Shaolin, right? But sometimes when they say this, they don't realize that it's not styles, but more forms. There are many forms that come out of Shaolin Kung Fu. Would you say that they're the same as for Wudang?
Right. So you'll see styles that have schools called Wudang all over the United States that have no relationship to Wudang within the last few generations. They might even come from like Taiwan and teach the arts that left China to Taiwan and then to the United States and call it Wudang still. And those forms may not be recognizable. So I don't want to claim that something is or isn't Wudang just because we don't recognize one form from one of the hundreds of temples that have existed over hundreds of years. But I will say that there are certain forms that we relate to Wudang or attribute to Wudang, like in the government issue, the I don't know how to word it, in the mainstream Tai Chi system that has like the Tai Chi 24 and all those numbered form names that aren't part of the family systems. They have a Wudang sword form, and that's the name of their Tai Chi sword form, which is like our Wudang Tai Chi sword form. So you can kind of see the similarities through Yang style carrying on the transmission of our form in theory. So Yang style isn't Wudang, but their sword form and their long form are a lot like our long form in the Sun Feng sect. So they're doing a form that I would say is just like ours, which is why I feel a lot of my material is accessible, because a lot of people know the Yang versions and see similarities in the movements or the form sequence. But I wouldn't claim that the Yang form is ours when they do it. Does that make sense? Because they have their own special flavor and skills that they practice that aren't part of what we practice with that same outline. So, but you're right. You can recognize specific forms to being Wudang, like the Tai Long Yichuan or the Xuan Wuchuan form. That's oftentimes attributed to one of the grandmasters as like something he made sure to carry on. So you can see, if you see that form, you know there's a Wudang relationship there directly to the mountain. Same thing with like Fu Hu Chuan. There's a lot of tiger taming fist forms, but if you see our tiger taming fist form with like this movement and a lot of like the Xingyi type techniques in it from the Xingyi animal system, you can kind of see, oh, it's tiger taming and it's Xingyi. There might be a layer there that was Wudang at some point. So but that's a whole nother one there. Yeah.
Hey man, that's great information. Thank you very much for sharing it. Okay, so my next question, since we're on these styles, right? The style that you are most known for, especially because you have the weapon right beside you, sir, right? If you don't mind me asking, how did you come to specialize in the sword? Was it like you as soon as you saw the sword, you're like, yes, I need to do this, or otherwise?
So if we go back, I always loved Sword, and Hero was my favorite movie, and Crouching Tiger, and all of these flying swordsmen, and the Wu-Tang albums, and everything related to this culture of the Wu-Tang and the Taoists, and all that stuff was beautiful, and just I was obsessed with it, but it wasn't accessible. So I ended up at a Shaolin and at these other styles, and that took me on good adventures and set good foundations, I think. But I stayed away from sword for a while after doing ninjutsu and other things, and just trying things. I just couldn't carry a sword with me moving and having a motorcycle without a car, and it just wasn't practical. And I had no one to do it with, really. So what I ended up is I'm learning Tai Chi with my teacher, and I'm in Florida, and he sends me a video of him doing the sword form, and he says, "Hey, learn this and come to Boston. Someone dropped out of my DVD, and you got to be in it." So I was like, I guess I got to learn a sword form in a couple weeks. And so when you watch that video and I look like I don't know what's going on and I don't understand what anyone's saying, because I wasn't practicing my Chinese at all at that time, I was completely a newcomer to that form in that video. And so if you watch my videos, you can see day one of me, or day two, or week two of me knowing the form, up through whatever I posted online last week. And you can kind of see the evolution of my relationship with the sword. But being able to find the teacher and then being taught all the lessons of the spiritual Taoist side that tie to it, I think that kind of kept me tied to the sword and really built my relationship with the art. I think that's kind of what's missing right now, and what you see online is you see the function of the sword, but not why it's important or what it means. So hopefully I'll be able to dive into that in the future. Yeah.
Awesome. So how long have you been specializing with the sword?
2010, I guess. There's no O there, but yeah, 2010, I guess, was when I was in that video. So that would be when you'd see me doing specializing, like beginning Wudong Jian. So as part of my training.
Wow. So literally specializing in the Jian. That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. So it leads me to segue into my next question. Okay. So, but just to establish a little bit of groundwork here. So you've specialized in the sword, right? But you have extensive training as well, with empty hand training as well.
Right. Correct.
Okay. So with that experience, then, Xia, I will ask you this: what do you think, in your honest opinion, is the hardest part of developing Kung Fu?
So I've heard this question, and when I hear it, I think of a lot of things that maybe are normal answers, like dedication, don't miss a day, always work hard, those types of things. And I hear that, and I think those are all great. But for me, I think the thing that made my training, how do I say it, made me decide, like, oh, I can't go back. This idea of, like, what's it called when you're in those gambling and you put in a little money, but now you're like investing more because you don't want to lose what you already put in. This idea of, I would call it sacrifice. I think if you recognize the sacrifices you make, you're going to appreciate the martial arts more. And if you know what you chose not to sacrifice for your martial arts, you'll appreciate those things more. And I get a lot of people that have amazing, wonderful lives with families and kids and friends and nice cars and homes and no bills to worry about. And they're like, oh, I wish I could do sword. Like, oh, I wish I had more time to practice. I wish I could. And I'm like, I don't have any of that stuff. That's why I have a little bit of skill, is because I've sacrificed a lot of things and made decisions that put Kung Fu first. And now I value it more, so I put more into it. And I think a lot of people look at their practice as an accessory to their life. But if you can give it an actual weight or an actual purpose in your life, it's gonna grow faster and flourish through everything. And a lot of people don't appreciate that sacrifice nowadays, I think, of their own. And it can go for both sides. But
that is incredibly insightful, Sean. Incredibly insightful. Of course, I'm going to literally tell you, I haven't had that answer before. And of all the episodes, of all the people I've spoken to, not one person has said sacrifice. Very insightful. It's so insightful, you have no idea how much I'm beaming inside that you just said that. Thank you very much, sir.
Oh, thank you.
That's very true. That's so true. I can't even say anything.
So I did watch the other ones, and they all said great things. So I didn't want to repeat.
That's no problem. That's absolutely no problem, Xia. Thank you very much for that. So we're going to go on to our fourth question. Right now, this one, right? I very much love to. I know you gave me a little bit of a little bit of your story earlier, right? But now this is how I'd like to see how we can tie everything into your story as well. So how has your martial training helped slash influenced your personal and professional life, if you don't mind me asking?
Right. So it's okay, personal life and professional life. Yeah. I've been around the whole North America into South America. I've traveled and trained with all different teachers of all different styles in my journeys. So it's just been, the art has allowed me this opportunity. And I think I fell into Wudong at the right time, right whenever the universe allowed it to happen. I actually was in a difficult family situation where my fiance at the time was going through a miscarriage and had to move back to Pennsylvania. And so my life was actually a mess that brought me back to where I could meet my teacher. So I kind of look at a lot of the stars, the fate of the stars changing my life to bring me to the moment where I could have met him. And then from that moment on, my life has changed paths completely. And, I've gone on all these new journeys. I've traveled the world. I've cultivated and I've gone to Wudong multiple times. I've taken my students to Wudong. I was blessed with being inducted at the temples and then the training and the practice. So to me, it has changed everything. But I don't want anyone to think that, oh, if I go to Wudong, everything will magically be like a fairy tale or like a movie or something. It's those sacrifices I mentioned that allow for a lot of that to happen. But I think that alone changes it. And I have tried to build a career out of this. I can't say it's too successful. I'm struggling doing a fundraiser to open my new school, not to plug it, but we're hoping to open a place up in State College here in my town where I'm at, and we have the place ready. But yeah.
By the way, Shaw, please do plug it. Please do.
Yeah, if you go to my Instagram, it's on there though. Yeah, but thank you. Yeah, but we're just trying to raise money to pay the architect and fix a bathroom, and then we'll have a school dedicated to Tai Chi and Wudong. So, that's what we're trying to get to. And then once that's up, I think my life here will be stable and ready to grow in that new direction. But up until now, I was living in Mexico and I never wanted to leave. And up until the pandemic in 2020, I never left unless my visa ran out. So I love that part of my life, and that was quite the adventure. And now I have a new journey growing a health community, because now my school is orientated towards all these towards locals that are missing their own wellness. And so sharing Tai Chi for health and my Life Nourishing Tai Chi program to this audience of self-minded and not martial-minded students is a real treat for me, because I've spent all these years getting challenged in sword fights and push hands and wrestling and clinch fighting and all these things. Everyone wants to test my buttons everywhere I go for martial arts. And then I show up and I'm teaching a health class and everyone's loving and sharing and kind and sweet. And I just think that's a testament to what these arts can be in the right environment if we can nourish them correctly. But
another off-the-cuff question, seeing as how you're talking about the challenges and stuff like that, everybody wants to test you and stuff. I saw the last video I saw online of you. You were doing a sparring match with somebody in a knight's suit.
Oh, right.
And they had a long sword and everything, and you were using the G and the straight sword against them. Was that a challenge, or was that probably just playing around?
So the knight fellow, or the gentleman in the knight armor, he is an amazing martial artist. He is an incredible. He was incredible, like an uncle teacher, like a big brother teacher to me for a while when I was a new teacher, and we trained together for a while. And he put on that armor. Excuse me. And we made the video, and it was, if you watch it, you can see he's taking his time. He's like, when we get started, it's round one. How hard are we going? How fast? And it was such a nice sparring match where like he would escalate a little and then I would have to escalate, and we would see where we would go back and forth instead of it being like, who wins, who would win, who's better. And if you watch the full video series on that, I mentioned how like the Taoist God wears armor under his robes. So me being there unarmored is already a little hypocritical to the situation and things. But it was a great experiment, and he was really kind and gentle with me and getting started, making sure we escalated together and not just walk through me. He's like 2 or 3 my weight, and he could just like barrel through me in that armor. What would I do other than run away or dodge maybe once or twice before he steps on me? So So it was a really great experience, and it was really nice if you watch the whole series to see how you can approach those types of challenges, like different ways of dealing with that situation. But I'm glad you watched it. Thanks so much for giving it the looks.
It's great, man.
It was
you have
exciting.
some great footage, man. You have great footage on there.
Yeah, I was scared to death.
Okay, I'll be honest, if I were you in that situation, I'd be scared to death as well. That's great, sir. That's great. This is a great conversation, Shaw. Let's continue. So let's get into a little bit more of a meaty question, right? If you could teach the new generation of martial artists only one thing, it could be technique or it could be philosophy, what would it be?
Okay, so one thing, technique or philosophy. And that's a tough choice because I want to say one of each.
Okay,
but
let's go with that. Let's go with that.
I want to teach a technique right now, and then maybe people watching it could enjoy it, and that would be already like mission complete, kind of a little check mark.
Sure.
But like if you were to like sit up and use your eyes and look down at the earth and try to breathe into your body, into your chest, you're going to feel the heaviness of your chest weighted down. But if you try that again, but first you have your eyeballs looking up, nothing else changed. Your chin's still the same, your body's the same, and you have your eyeballs up, and you breathe in, you're going to feel how light your chest is and how easy it is to take that breath without tension or resistance. And I feel that the idea or the principle of looking up, I think, takes away a lot of stress and tension and roadblocks. And if we're always looking down and always worrying about falling, we can't know where to grab to keep climbing. And so this idea of looking up, I think, is one of the most important philosophies that is both a technique and a principle. So I think that would be one. I have more, but
awesome.
Stay with that. That way we can touch both a little.
That's awesome. It's as if you look up, you breathe. It's lighter to breathe. Look down, and it's heavier to breathe.
Right, and you have these eye muscles, and the eye muscles are being pulled down when you look down. The muscle has to pull, and so that pulling adds this weight and this tension. But the up pulls the chest up instead of pulling the eyes down. And so it's mechanical, it's physiological, but it's also emotional and spiritual in a way where I'm looking at the sky now, I'm taking it in. Last night we saw the auroras for the first time I ever saw them, looking up. So breathing easy. So I think maybe that would be my answer. But
that is a great answer.
Thank you.
And you know what else? It's a great technique. And I'm so happy at the fact that you actually showed that technique right now, like right there, right here. That's great. I think I'll use it if you don't mind.
Yeah. No, please. That's why I said it. In case things are ever hard, make sure you look up.
Hey man, that's a great. When you say it like that, for some strange reason, I don't really read into it too much. When you just say, hey, when things are bad, just look up. But I don't know. I guess it's just the way how it's said. It just doesn't it doesn't attract my attention. But when you explain it, then I can see it 100% and I can feel it 100%. And wow, that's great advice. I like it. It's a great technique. It's a great technique, not just for the martial arts, but for when you're getting yourself ready to do anything at all. Just look up and take a deep breath in. That's great.
And when you start your Tai Chi form, some start this way and some start this way, but oftentimes the eyes go up. So now you're setting this nice pace of a deeper breath than just up, down, in, out. But now you have whole body taking time to breathe, and the eyes are allowing that to set the rhythm for the rest of your Tai Chi. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so I got one more question for you, though.
Yeah.
So,
I want to ask you all these questions now. We should do a reverse episode.
I think I'd like to.
Yeah.
We're going to get that into the works, definitely. So, here's a question for you. When someone sees this interview, right, and they see this technique, and they say, hey, Swordsman Xia is a really cool guy. I really like this technique, but I don't know how to get in touch with him. How do I do that? How do they do that?
I have like all different types of branding for all my different things I work on related to these arts. So it's kind of a mess to find them all. But if you just look Swordsman Xia on Instagram, that's like a nice hub spot where you'll see that's the only place I update. I've been off social media since the pandemic. When the Zoom took over, I was like, I am not teaching everybody online. I'm retiring. And so I kind of missed that whole time. But now that I'm building the school, I'm trying to make it more accessible, having events and things. So I want everybody to know and see. So if you check out the Swordsman Xia Instagram, that's Swordsman Xia, that's where you'll see all my little videos now. And then also the Wudong Swordsman on YouTube. That's our main YouTube channel. But I hope everyone can enjoy and ask questions and stuff. It'd be great to go more with you on these.
All right, that's great. So, contact information for Swordsman Xia will be in the description down below. Also in the description down below will be a link for Fei Yu shoes. Oh, pardon me. I've been mispronouncing that word for the longest time. Right? If you need Fei Yue shoes, go ahead and click the link down below. Get the best prices, get the best deals, all at Fei Yue shoes. All right, Swordsman Xia, I want to thank you very much for the time you've taken to speak with me about your experiences about Wudang. I have learned so much. Thank you very much, sir.
So glad. Thank you for having me. It's been fun.